Change form. All right, thank you. I'm going to bring the special budget meeting for the Washington County Quorum Court to order. J.P. Essery has agreed to do the prayer and pledge this evening. J.P. Essery.
Lord, we are just grateful for the opportunity to be here. We thank you for this great county that we live in. I ask that you just give us great wisdom tonight, Lord, as we do the county business. And we thank you for that. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to the adoption of the agenda. Do we have any changes to the agenda? I'll take a motion, entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda.
Move to adopt by J.P. Duncan, second by J.P. Essery. All those in favor?
Aye.
The agenda has been adopted. First on our list this evening for budget reviews is Assessor Hill.
Am I live? Okay, I'm live. Okay, so, well, good to see you guys, everyone tonight. I can go through kind of, let me get everything here. I think we've got pretty good notes on everything that goes through. It's pretty detailed. I really like the way that was laid out. I don't know who, I know I did part of that, but whoever laid that out did a really good job. So I appreciate that. As far as the assessor budget, you can look and see there, nothing too dramatic. I just really is going through that. At the time that I was going through that, we were seeing price increases on everything going through the roof, and so I just went in there not knowing what 2022 is going to look like with production shortages and everything, and so you see several areas there. I just marked it up 10% for inflation. There's a few no changes. And just a reminder, on this part of the budget, the general fund of the assessors, we have a 9% impact on the county general budget. So the schools fund the majority of this. Is there any questions that I could answer for you? Yes, sir.
J.P. Essery?
Thank you. I have several questions. As I was going through this, I noticed that on, line 2022, which I believe is the plumbing and electrical, it's gone from 13,020. It's gone up to 28,000, and that's $10,000 difference.
Plumbing and electrical?
Yes, sir.
I'm showing from 1,000 to 1,100.
Maybe I don't have the right line. 2022. No. I'm so sorry.
Computer equipment.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Computer equipment's going from 20 to 28,155.
That's correct.
Yeah. I've got everything detailed in there. If you look on page 28 of the notes, there's a detailed description of everything that we would need for that. There are a couple of additions that as technology grows and advances, we become a little bit more dependent on it. We we scan all of our documents. We're going more paperless, and so we have scanners on there that we're having now to add into what we do. And then we've got also additional hand scanners. This was a project I worked with the State Department on. Pretty soon, well, actually now they are printing all new vehicle titles, car titles. They have a barcode on it with the VIN number. That actually started yesterday. This was something I worked with the State Department on and with our Assessors Association. So when you go to assess your vehicles, we have to manually type in that 17-digit VIN number. That tells you the make, model, everything about the vehicle, which then automatically puts a value on it. human error happens all the time. People transpose, get something wrong, we get the wrong values on there. With these scanners, it's going to now, that we're buying for our folks, it's going to help speed us up. So it's going to make us more efficient, but it's also going to make it more accurate. So we're not going to have those mistakes anymore. And so that is a little bit something that we've added on there as well. But this is just looking at what we need and priced out at where it's priced out at.
Okay, thank you. And then I have two other things.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask each individual this tonight, and that is that,
JP Usry, can you pull the mic down?
yes, sorry. Is there anything that you're doing manually that you could do automatically? And what I mean by that is, for example, are there forms that you're filling out that you could go in and have everything default and do things like that? Are there things in your office that you could do to, I know this is something I'm just asking everybody to think about.
Yeah.
How we can be more efficient, because, I mean, we come in the same day every day and do the same thing every day. And it's easy for us to fall in the rut of going through all these steps whenever, just like with the scanner. That's a prime example. But,
Yep.
you know, if we could look at those things. And the second thing is that I noticed that the software charges for everybody is pretty stout.
Yeah.
And are there things that our IT department could possibly do, even if they had to spend some time programming, that could help mitigate some of those costs? That's just, I'm throwing it out there for thought.
Things to look at and
Yes,
explore.
sir.
Yes. And I do have a project that we're working on, working with a provider that I don't want to release yet because we're still in the works on it, but it could be a big game changer.
Right.
So,
Okay. And thank you very much for all your work on this.
oh yeah, you're welcome.
Appreciate it.
JP Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Hill, thanks for joining us tonight. I'm looking at line item 3005, special legal.
Yes,
It looks like there's never been anything charged to that account.
correct. It's, what's that there, what that is there for? Okay, yes, sir. Oh, okay. Yeah, we have that there for as kind of an emergency thing. Right now, we have on the Board of Equalization starts Monday. And so we have people who are coming in to protest their values. One of those is the Northwest Arkansas Mall. If we get into a big dispute on that, then I'm going to have to hire special legal counsel. And usually that involves getting a third-party appraisal. Those can run anywhere from, depending on the size of the building, the mall would, I always kind of use the mall because that's one of our bigger commercial buildings that we always get appeals on. And so with them, it could be anywhere from $10,000 to $12,000, could even run up to $18,000 for just the appraisal side of things. And so that's there. For me to have to come to the quorum court takes more time than we have when we're going through a board appeal. And so I don't have that kind of luxury of time to go to the court and ask for additional money for that. So we just have that there, and hopefully we never use it, and then we just give the money back at the end of the year.
Any more questions for Assessor Hill? Thank you, sir. I appreciate you coming tonight. I really do.
You bet. Thank you.
Next up on the agenda is Circuit Court 1, Judge Martin. I believe that's on page 48, by the way.
Hello?
I think you're there.
All right. Kind of feel like Mr. Hill just said that the whoever put this one together did a pretty good job, and it's got all the details in there. We were asking for, well, actually, we're asking for the same amount. We are deducting some expenses that don't apply anymore, and asking for $2,000 more for food for the juries, just because food prices have also gone up, along with everything else that Russell mentioned. got 91 days scheduled for jury trials so far in 2022. And in, you know, a normal times, this would increase, of course, but it's not normal times, so I don't know what to expect out of that. And then I'll just ask if y'all have any questions of me.
Any questions for Judge Martin? J.P. Washington?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Judge Martin, I just have one question. I noticed that there was nothing budgeted for training or education. So do you not anticipate any training needs in 2022?
Not from the county, no ma'am. I have a newly certified TCA, and that's actually one of the deductions that we got to make, I believe. Well, the mileage that she was having, well, yeah, the training and education. So she has passed her courses and is official. I mean, I guess she was already official, but now she's got another official title on her belt that I think it's as much as she can do right now, as much education as she can do right now.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Thank you, Judge Martin. We appreciate you being here.
All right, thank y'all.
Circuit Court 2, Judge 3. That'll be on page 50.
Hey, this is a beautiful budget. It's an incredible budget. It's the best budget I've ever seen in my whole life. Any questions? I didn't put any training in either. They have free training that covers the 12 hours we need for the judges, as well as TCA and court reporter. And they've never brought up they want outside training outside of what they got, so I never bring it up.
J.P. Johnson?
Thank you. Good evening, Judge.
Hey,
It's a beautiful budget.
it is. It's bringing a tear to my eye.
Explain to me on line item 3092, the most you've spent in the last three years is $13,000, and you want us to budget $40,000 this year.
Yes, sir. That's a good question. But what we do is try to project the number of days that's going to be jury trials for the next year. With that comes $50 a day, which the $50 a day for jurors who serve, the fee of $15 a day for jurors who don't serve. Those are reimbursed to the county, but they add up pretty quickly. In fact, the $13,000, I have to keep taking my glasses off, sorry. The $13,000 figure, $13,173.25, whatever it was, that was two juries. That was two jury trials because one lasted 10 days, one lasted 4 days. And that was it for the year. And that was the year before COVID. So what we do is try to project the number of days in court that's going to be. Then you multiply that by the fees as well as mileage. I think it's 0.575 per miles outside of outside of Fayetteville city limits. Then you got to do a round trip, and then you got to multiply it by the days. You got to multiply it by 12 jurors. And if you've got a long jury trial, you've got to add 2 jurors for alternates. And so that's why we come up with that number. Now, the reason we didn't spend any last year is because COVID. Now, 13,000, like I explained. We don't know how many days. They opened it back up for jury trials in May. We had one in May. We had one in June. We were supposed to have one that was going to be 5 days in June. We'd had a couple of hearings prior to it, and a few days before they settled it. So that went away. We hadn't had one in July. Now that's, of course, 2021. But 2022, we look at them, try to see, and that number will go up that we use. The upper limit will go up. That doesn't mean that we'll have those days used. But it just means the projection of here's how many days where it looks like it's going to be a jury trial. And so we try to base the budget based on that.
I'm assuming that food budget it was arrived at the same way?
The same way. It's based on, I think, $250 average, doing 40 days makes 10,000, I think, if my math's correct. The number will go well over 40 by the time we get 2022 calendar's not completely done yet, so we're just projecting on what we can on that. So that number will go up, but again, that doesn't mean all those days are going to be used. They never are, or hardly ever are, but we just don't know. And with mileage reimbursement, the county does not get reimbursed for that, and there's no way to project the mileage. I mean, you can take an average, it doesn't matter, because you've got people coming from Winslow, you got people coming from Lincoln, you got people from Fayetteville. You never know, and you never know how long the trial is going to actually last. So, and that's something the county doesn't get reimbursed for, but they do get reimbursed for the fee. So, but we have to pay it. So it's in the budget, then it goes back to the county when the reimbursement comes in.
Sir.
J.P. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my question may not relate directly to this budget, but have you guys, as judges, tried to look at the backlog of cases that are out there and what the need might be if we were able to put some additional people on some of these cases? In other words, I don't know if we could hire an interim judge or something like that. Is there any way to tell what the need is?
Well, you wouldn't be able to do that.
We could not do that. Nobody could.
No.
No cut.
You
Okay.
couldn't do that.
How could we take care of the backlog?
Well, my backlog consists mainly of just jury trials. My
Right.
docket kept going the entire time because we did Zoom starting in, I want to say, well, immediately for the emergencies. We did that, but then I think in May of last year, I think the courthouse opened back up. So we were back in here, but still doing Zoom. And so that docket was able to keep going with Zoom, but you couldn't do jury trials. And that's why jury trial really is the only thing that really goes up, and it's doubled from last year, even though we didn't use any of it. Last year it's doubled just because we anticipate the numbers are going to be that much higher.
So you're saying no problem?
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm just saying,
What
we'll live with it.
have you looked at the need of what could be done?
No.
Okay.
I don't know what could be. You can't hire another judge. You can't bring another judge in. So I don't know what could be. So you just keep plodding along. That's the way it goes.
Okay.
Give it a shot and see what happens.
All righty. Thank you.
J.P. Simons.
You guys didn't have near this many questions and he's already gone.
Thank you, Chair.
And I told you how beautiful the budget was.
Judge Threet, thank you for being here. Is there anything that you need that you are doing without?
No, I'm good. Other than my office leaks, and I think that's because something that I don't want to blame. Oh, you are still here. My office leaks badly. And they've worked on it multiple times over the years. And it's bad just because I've got a credenza going this way, I've got a credenza going that way, and I'll put papers on it because it's a place I can set papers on. And sometimes it turns out badly, especially over the week. But I keep about 6-7 buckets at all times in the windowsill, so that and they've worked on it. They'd sprayed something on the outside, and it worked for a few months. But boy, some days, I guess it depends on the wind or whatever. It's like a fountain in there. It's like my own personal waterfall. So I kind of feel special in that I've got a soothing waterfall running in my office. But once it hits those papers, it gets bad.
You're asking for $100 more than you did last year. Is that for buckets?
It's those blue recycle buckets. What I do is go around and steal them from other offices when nobody's looking.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Judge Threet? Thank you for coming, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right. Circuit Court 4, Judge Beaumont.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
As you can tell, I'm not Judge Beaumont. I'm her TCA, Casey. And
I want to thank you for coming tonight. Casey, Ms. Hassel emailed me earlier today and said that she would have her child with her, would that be a problem? And I promised her we'd all be on our best behavior.
Is there any questions?
This will be on 75. Sorry about that. JP Johnson?
Your budget's unique to all the other judges.
How so?
You're not gonna feed people as well in 2022.
We don't do as many jury trials as the other judges do.
Okay.
We do have a couple of civil cases that we do, that we take occasionally. We actually have a jury trial coming up this year that we're going to hear, but typically we don't get any like new civil cases. We do mostly like domestic and drug court. Do what?
And operate the system. So
It's okay.
what you're telling me is you don't have the jury trials at the other courts.
That's correct. We don't.
All right, thank you.
JP Simons?
Thank you, Chair. Going off of JP Johnson's remarks, a bit unique that you're actually asking for less. So same question as Judge Threet, is there anything that you need that you're doing without?
I don't think
you're-
so.
You're asking for $1,000 less in general
Yeah,
supplies?
we were just trying to cut costs where we could.
Appreciate that.
I mean, I know that that's always asked. So I'm always looking at like, well, what did we spend? What are we going to be doing in the next year? And I tried to cut it as much as I could. I think I only saved us, or there was only like a difference of a few hundred from the last time that we came, but I really didn't feel like we could budge anywhere else at this time.
Thank you.
So.
Any other questions? I would just say, and I mean, this is a little bit late, but any of the circuit court judges, we know you are backed up because of COVID, and we want to help you guys any way we can. So if there's things throughout the year or now between the end of the year that you realize as the courts hopefully start opening back up, please let us know. We want to be here so we can try to help you guys out with anything we can do on our end. And I appreciate you coming tonight so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Circuit Court 5, Judge Story Bryan. That's on page 80.
Good evening. I think our only increases, like most of the other circuit judges, are for jury food and then jury fees and mileage. We, like everyone else, haven't had a jury trial, or I haven't had one since I think we stopped them last March. We haven't resumed them. We just keep pushing them back. We've asked for some modifications for the courtroom, but I think maybe because of supplies being short and labor being hard to find, we haven't received any of those modifications. So we haven't had a jury trial yet. Luckily, we were able to borrow one of your glass partitions. So there's been a couple of in-person cases because of the witnesses' either inability to hear or some sort of problem where they couldn't participate in a Zoom. And so we borrowed your glass partitions just because of the proximity of our court reporter and the witnesses. They're just within inches of each other. So we've been able to have in-person proceedings because of that. We don't have any backlog at all because we've been doing Zoom ever since the courthouse closed. And then even when it started, when it reopened, we continued to do Zoom. So the only backlog would be our civil cases. And if you look on our budget, even before COVID, we were only averaging maybe 1 or 2 jury trials a year. So even though I hear 20% of all civil cases for the county, most civil cases, if you're able to keep that trial date, settle. And the reason that they've sort of had this backlog is we're having to move dates, which doesn't force that settlement because of COVID. So I really think once we can keep a trial date, they're going to continue to settle. And we're not going to even use anywhere close to the meal budget being requested or the fees and mileage being requested, but we have to have the ability to sort of force it. And that's just human nature. The lawyers are busy on other cases, and if you can't force them to that trial date, you know, they're going to deal with whatever trials are actually happening. Any questions
Any
on
questions?
any of it?
Thank you so much for
Okay.
coming
All
and
right,
being
thank-
part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Circuit Court 6, Judge Lindsay. This will be the next budget in the book, page 82.
Good evening. This is the same budget that y'all approved last year. I don't know what else to say other than, Mr. Wilson, you had a question about, what was it? At the time, I thought, well, I'm going to go ahead and,
My question, I had understood that there was a backlog,
Oh,
that we
okay.
weren't able to carry out everything that needed to be
Yeah.
done from a judicial standpoint because of COVID. And I was trying to find out if there were any measures that could be put in
Right.
place that would help catch that
Okay.
up.
I probably have the biggest backlog of anybody because all I hear is criminal cases. And several things affect that. Number one, because of COVID, which is still around, we cannot transport prisoners from the jail to the courthouse. So that's fine if they work out a plea bargain. I can take their plea over Zoom, but a criminal trial must be in person. The defendant has to be there. He can't be present by Zoom. So, everybody that I work with, the prosecutors, the public defenders, they are working, I believe, as hard as they can. I am setting cases. We usually set a bunch of them on Monday, a bunch of them on Wednesday, and we had our first jury trial. It'll be 2 weeks ago this coming Monday and Tuesday. Called 34 jurors. I wasn't sure how many would show up. We called 35 and 34 showed up. Everything went fine. We had asked for some money last year to put up plexiglass and things like that. We kind of copied Judge Martin's plan since we didn't get that, and we ended up spending $6,000, and the jurors were happy with it. We offered them a chance to eat separately. They didn't want to do that. We offered them a chance to use the courtroom as opposed to the jury room to deliberate. They didn't want to do that, and everything went fine. But as far as how we could speed things up, as I said, the prosecutors and public defenders, I think, are working as hard as they can. And I'm setting as many cases as I can, and we have cases set for Monday. We started out up with over 10. We're down to one case that probably won't try because the defense lawyer hasn't been able to contact his client lately, hadn't been able to find his client lately. So I'm probably not even going to call a jury. So anyway, we're making some progress, but the only thing that I can think of would be if we had more public defenders, and another judge really wouldn't help right now because we've still got the same number of public defenders and prosecuting attorneys. So another judge is not going to help any. They can only work so much. So that would help if we could get some more public defenders and prosecutors. My windows leak too, but it's much better than when I was in Judge Threet's office. As far as, Ms. Washington, I think you had a question about education. Court reporters have to have continuing education just like lawyers and judges until they get to be my age. I got a letter a couple of years ago that said, you don't have to have any more CLE. So anyway, court reporters do, and so the amount we spent one year was for Denise, and then as I think it was one of the other judges, Martin or Three, I have a relatively new, she came on, I believe, in 2019, trial court assistant. They have a program for them to become certified, and the amount we spent last year was to pay her tuition to go to this certification course that ended up not happening. Now, I'm sure she'll get credit for that when they start having them again. We as well, you know, I wish I had a crystal ball, but all I can do is hope for the best. And we tried to estimate if everything goes perfectly and COVID doesn't affect us, how much do we need for juries? Kind of the same thing that Judge Threek does. But my cases, if they go to trial, are always juries, because a criminal defendant doesn't want one grumpy old man deciding his fate. He or she wants a jury of 12. So, any other questions?
J.P. Johnson?
Yes.
J.P. Johnson? J.P. Johnson? Cue your mic one more time, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Okay. What is going to trigger the sheriff's ability to transport? I mean, how are we going to know when that day comes?
Well, we think that when he gets herd immunity, that may help. But the last time I heard, he hadn't. Plus, you've got new people coming into the jail all the time, and every now and then one of them will bring it in, and they'll somehow. It's no fault of the sheriffs, but it you know, they have a spike in cases every now and then. So it's you know, that's his decision to make, and I trust Sheriff Helder. I've known him since about 1985, and so we're just waiting for him to think that it's safe enough. Because if someone right now, if he brings someone that's in the general population up here for a trial, then if they go back, they have to go back into quarantine, and you just run the risk of starting something bad that you don't want to happen. Yes, sir.
I have a question, Judge Lindsay. Let's say there was an opportunity to hire more prosecutors and public defenders. Your court could handle extra capacity to run more extra cases through. Yes. I'm sure that they would produce.
Yes. Now that you know, Judge Taylor handles 25% of the criminal docket, but yes, we could take care of the increase in productivity if we had more.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Any other questions for Judge Lindsay? Thank you for coming, sir. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much. I want to thank you for granting my request for a law clerk last year. It is helping immensely. He is helping settle some of these cases, and while I thought it was going to probably go to a first-year law student, not a first-year law student, a first-year lawyer, by a stroke of good luck, I got a lawyer that had practiced criminal law exclusively for 27 years and had retired 3 or 4 years ago, and he or his wife, one, decided it was time for him to get out of the house a little bit. So anyway, thank you very much for that.
Sir.
I appreciate it.
Well, the circuit judges have been the most enjoyable budget reviews so far, right? All right. Next on the agenda, we want to hear from the Public Defender's Office. In the budget book, that's page 224. Welcome. Please introduce yourselves and let's.
I'm Leanna Houston. Denny Heislip is here, but he always has me do the budget. But if y'all have any questions for him, he's on the back row. And then Blake Chancellor's up here as well. And it's not included in this, but if y'all want to work with us, some more attorneys like Judge Lindsay suggested, I would be delighted. We've worked very hard. Mika Hatcher told me today that we've recently disposed and closed of 1,200 cases. We're in court every day, pleading cases, or having them null-prossed, where they don't prosecute them anymore and they're dismissed. And so we're working very hard to get these cases processed, to get people moving through the jail. But more attorneys would help on that with the COVID backlog. The new attorneys that y'all provided for us and the prosecutor last year has just, their caseload has been handed to them, and our cases are, we have a bigger caseload than what we did last year. And so it's just helped us keep our heads above water. But the things, I have got 2 big requests in my budget for this year. One of them follows with what the criminal justice assessment suggested that y'all did last year. And it's that the public defender attorneys be brought up to the same salary as the prosecuting attorneys. That would help us greatly in providing more consistency in the office. In the last year, one of our attorneys moved over to the prosecutor's office for more pay. 2 other attorneys have left the office to go to other jobs for more pay. And so having more consistency in the same pay as the prosecutors would provide parity in the court system, like the criminal justice assessment talked about, as well as just having more consistency in the office. When somebody leaves the office, we have to reassign those cases, and then we hire somebody new. We have to train them and make them familiar with the judges and the court system and what we need to do to dispose of cases. And so it slows everything down and doesn't help us keep it going. The second request I've made, Chairman Deakins last summer helped us start a 1-year free contract with a program called UpTrust, which when somebody is released from the jail, it puts it into their UpTrust system so that they are provided with text reminders of their court, preventing FTAs or failure to appears, helps keep people out of the jail and helps keep our costs down from having to build a new jail or having more people in the jail. So just like your doctor and your dentist send you text reminders, this is a system. It helps us, it helps private attorneys, helps the whole system in providing reminders on their court dates, reminders in text for them to contact us and to stay in touch with us so that we can keep working on their case and stay in, know what they're wanting to do on it. So those are the 2 big changes or big requests that I've made. So does anybody have any questions?
JP Johnson?
Yes, thank you. I want to make sure I understand this correct. You have 15 deputy public defenders today. 6 of them are on the county payroll, if you will. The rest of those are paid by the state?
I think we have 17.
Well.
Okay.
Am I correct? The rest of them are paid by the state?
Yes, sir.
How does that rate compare with the rate you're asking us to pay, the new rate you're asking for the 6 on the county payroll?
It depends. The state has different levels that they provide for the attorney positions, and so we have some of both levels, and so it just depends on which level is open when we can move somebody into a state spot. But the county is currently paying less than what the state is.
Tell me about what that state pay is?
I think it can be around 58 to 60, sometimes 66, sometimes 70, 72 or so.
I don't want to get in a situation where we're paying more than the state's paying. I mean, this is the state's obligation in the first place.
Right. The state does not have a consistent amount, and so they sometimes move people in at different rates. But I'll say this, the county is currently paying much less than what the state does.
Let me try to explain it this way. When the state does hiring, they have different, and I think they've changed the codes that they use. But
Counselor Chancellor, will you move that microphone over towards you?
The state has different levels, kind of like a government position where they have a level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The Public Defender Commission has a certain number of each one of those positions. So when a state employee leaves, we're not always given the same level back. So that's where there's some differences. So if a level 7, I'm just using numbers as an example, but if a level 7 left, we don't necessarily get to hire a level 7 back. It depends. Little Rock makes that decision on who we hire back. But in general answer to your question, even the lowest pay rate that the state is paying is more than what the county is paying.
JP Esri?
Yes, thank you. I guess what we're looking for here is what dollar amount is it going to take to do what you want to do?
I believe the comptroller's office has put that, they've helped us with those prices, and they've put that in there.
Page 223, $60,733.
And that amount would cover what you're looking for, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then my second question is that on the uptrust, there's a sentence down there that says that the anything that has to do with the sheriff's office outside of certain parameters would cost more, and I'm not sure what that would entail.
On the proposal from Uptrust,
Yes.
at this point, they have already started doing that, and they have not said anything. They have said it's just a spreadsheet that the sheriff is having to enter the name, the court date, and a phone number in, and they're not charging anything extra for it.
Okay, but do you see the sentence though?
I see the sentence, yes, sir.
Okay.
And I do not think that they are, I think they put that in there to protect themselves.
Right.
But they have started working on this, and there has not been an increase in cost or any cost associated with it.
Okay, and thank you. That's what I thought. I just want to kind of clarify that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If I may clarify one other thing for you, I don't know that the system was explained or how much this came up before, but just to be clear, the trial period was just through our office. So the information that Uptrust was downloading just came from our office. So our clients were getting that information. It is now being added that the information is being pulled from the jail for 8.1 and arraignment. So even before they're with us. What that system entails basically is there's an automatic, it's kind of like a mail merge, if you've ever done that with like Word or something like that. There's a spreadsheet that's created and that gets dumped into their system. So I believe what that's actually referring to is the way that that information gets transferred from the sheriff's office into the system. But as she said, that process is already occurring. They haven't experienced any more increases. There's still some tweaking to make sure that system works, but the data download is going to be the same.
I have some questions and follow up to the Uptrust. We kind of started that in a bad time.
We did.
I mean, but I think, you know, who had that hindsight? But I ask you a couple questions because I just want to correct my frame of reference if it's wrong. I think Uptrust has been pretty accommodating. Would you not say that they've been pretty accommodating with the county?
Very much so, yes.
Okay. How are we going to analyze whether Uptrust is working? I mean, correct me wrong too, but we haven't really had the opportunity to use it very much, right? Because the courts are shut down. There's not really anything to remind people about right now, right?
Right.
So I say that to say, how do we, and I don't know that, I'm not putting you on the spot for an answer tonight, but how do we assess that it's working?
Yeah, I thought a lot about that because last fall you and I had talked a lot about it, and that we would need to assess that. Right now, we are having a lot of failure to appears because in the last year, without having regular court appearances, people seem to have gotten lost. We call everyone the day before court from our office or, you know, the week before, trying to find them and locate them, bring them up to speed, let them know their court date is coming up. So many of those people over the last year and a half, their phone numbers have changed. They don't have the same phone numbers. And so we had initially started Uptrust when they got it put together last November. And it was causing a lot of confusion because we were sending these text messages saying you have court, and yet they really didn't have court yet. And so we all agreed to just suspend it until things gotten started back. And they have started sending those text messages again. I think that when the prosecutors and our office works together, that we will be able to come up with a system, judging how it's improving the failure to appear rate based on the number of failure to appears we're currently having, and if we can make those decrease. In the justice assessment that was done last fall, there's a lot of statistics given about the number of failure to appears. And I think as we start using the uptrust, we can see those go down.
Because really, that's the only thing we've changed to this point.
Right.
I mean, the implementation of uptrust, right?
Right.
Well, and the only reason I'm asking is because, it's a new system. I know there's going to be kinks. I think the implementation has taken a lot longer than I thought it would, but I'm sure you feel the same way. If this tool doesn't work, let's get another tool, is what my message is to you guys. Not let's pull the plug and just forget about it and move on, but I want it to work. And if it doesn't work, then let's do something different, right? And then finally, I think in the last few weeks, there was some sort of cooperation you were trying to get from the jail in terms of some of this. I think it's probably what Counselor Chancellor was just saying about some of this initial information that the Public Defender's Office needs to get. Is that working? Are you getting the communication there? I know that I had talked to some people at the jail, and they were actually going to get on a call with with Sean with Uptrust to kind of work through the process. Is that work moving forward?
I think that happened yesterday.
Okay.
Sean emailed me Monday that he had a phone conversation with Jay Cantrell at the jail yesterday morning. And so that did happen, and they're getting on it and getting their system set up. And Sean says it's not going to be very complicated at all for the jail to enter this information. And so they're talking about doing it as part of when they book somebody out, that they just enter their number and their court date. And then Uptrust does a lot of stuff within their own system where they continually ping, is one of the words they use, text numbers to make sure that they're still current. And so that if somebody's phone is shut off and no longer current, it notifies them instantly so that we can start, and it sends us a text message so that we can start looking for them or trying to find them before 6 months or 3 months, whatever has gone by, and they're further down the road, so to speak. And so they have a lot of things within their system to continually make sure that the numbers are current. Yeah.
Just to add to that, one other thing is part of this data download, it is a repetitive download from our system. Now, this may not work for 8.1s or for arraignments because that would involve a little different system with theirs. But in our system, if a person fails to appear, that's noted in our database. When they pull that information, I believe my conversations with Sean, I think we've had those meetings, was that they are pulling that information and they are internally going to, the Uptrust is basically going to create some of that data for us and be able to say, here's the number of people we sent messages to, here's the number of people that failed to appear. And so over a significant period of time, and I think that's the only thing that may be an issue here, is I don't think 2, 3, or 4 months is really going to be a significant or a statistically relevant a period of time. But over the course of 12 months or so, we should be able to have data from Uptrust that they can provide to us without any extra work on our part that will say, here's what your FTA rates were in January, here's what they were in December. And so I think there'll be some easily accessible information that this time next year we could certainly have that conversation with some statistically relevant numbers.
Yeah. And that's what I want everybody to understand is we started this process a year ago, but it hasn't had the chance to do anything. I mean, we like I said, it was poor timing due to the pandemic, but of course we didn't know that.
Well, I think we started like in June or July, and then the guy writing the system had COVID, and so that put him out for 2 or 3 months and got us behind from the beginning. But they did make it so that then they started the program in November, and so they did extend, instead of having it be free from June to June, they made it from November to November. So we pretty much have it free for this year.
Gotcha. Great. Well, and lastly, I mean, I think we've talked about it a couple times, but I would just say that, you know, I think even through the American Rescue Plan, some of the things we're hearing is that some of those resources could be used to help clear the judicial backlog, right? So yes, I invite you guys to come up with some ideas. I know some of the other justices have reached out to you guys and Prosecutor Durrett and the judges to make sure that that's known. You know, I think the pushback on that is some of that help's got to be temporary because those funds, of course, are not there forever. And, you know, there's this, we're trying not to take on more of what we see as a state obligation, but we want to help you guys out as much as possible to help free some of these up.
If we come up with some additions for that, do you want me to email it to you? Or what
Yes.
procedures do you want me to take?
Yes, I think if you come up with anything, resources that would help you, you know, I don't know what that looks like, you know, being from where you guys are at. If it's staffing, I mean, it sounds like staffing would be the number one thing, but whatever that looks like, yeah, let us know and let's start putting some figures to it, see if it makes sense. And, you know, of course, we've ran into this before, and I just say this for the edification of some of the newer justices. If we, you know, the prosecutors and public defenders kind of have to move in tandem, right? We can't over-resource one or it burdens you know what I mean? They have to move. It's a balancing act. So, you know what I mean? I think in coordination with that office, too, would be very beneficial for us to hear what you and your office think that would really help you guys out.
Okay, I'll talk to Matt and we'll come up with some things.
That'd be great, yeah. J.P. Simons.
Thank you, Chair. Are these issues that the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee are also tackling? And the research data that we had through that company that came in and did that, is there any insights in there that we could draw from?
I'm not sure. I haven't been updated on that committee's work.
That's what I have cited in my letter, is from their statistics and their numbers. They said both things. They said that the public defenders need to be put more on the equal level as the prosecutors as far as salary and staff members. And it also talks about a program like the Uptrust program to keep people informed of their court dates. So both of these ideas I pulled from that.
I would just add is I assess the situation, which, you know, I can only speak for me personally. We now have a short-term problem and we've had a long-term problem for a long time now. And that's what the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee was kind of looking at, those long-term effects. We also now have a very short-term impact with this case backlog with the courts being closed. So, you know, tackle both issues. Any other questions? J.P. Dennis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. I'll address to you, but I'd like to compliment Mrs. Houston and her staff. I went and made a visit, and I was very impressed. I was very impressed with their workload. I think that today I thought I worked hard laying concrete, and I tell you the truth, I think y'all work harder than I did today. So my compliments to you. I was very impressed. And if I'm going to have a constituent that needs a public defender, I want them to have the best, and I want them to have equal to. And I liked what Chairman Deacon said. I'd like to see it balanced out, where that the defender and the prosecutor are equal. I learned so much by going and sitting with you and having you educate me on what all you really do, what your day looks like, and when it starts and when it finishes, and everything that you do in between. And so I was very impressed with that. So I want to get to a question. How many employees work two jobs? How many Washington County employees that work in your department have to work two jobs or do work two jobs?
Well, I know that you met a receptionist, and she works till 4:30, and then she goes to another job where she works to 8 or 9 at night, which concerns me very much for her. She's also ill with lupus, and so I worry very much about her.
Well, I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about all Washington County employees, and
I hope the Personnel Committee and Finance Committee can do something to help all of them. On the building, I'm afraid we may not get you back for another meeting. Can you tell us how you feel about the building? Is it progressing? I got to see some of the work that was going on, and looked like they were getting the roof fixed. So can you tell us how you're feeling about that?
I'm going to let, Blake's been talking to a lot of the people coming in doing the work, so I'm going to let him.
I think, and this was just occurred within the last a few days, there was a what Mr. Gonzalez labeled as a temporary patch put on the roof. It does appear that the last time it rained that stopped most of the problems. So as far as the leaks, we've had, personally, my office, much like Judge Threet, I have one tile that has fallen out 7-8 times in the course of my employment there, and I've just kind of learned to avoid that. The main issue is that one wall in the back. And I understand that they're working with the insurance company. My concern is, and I'm certainly by no means an expert, but I do enough construction that what I'm really concerned about at this point is not necessarily the leak anymore, because I think that has been stopped, but the main leak was right over a wall. And that wall has been pretty much consistently damp or wet for, I would say, a year. So I'm very concerned that what's behind that wall at this point, and I'm hoping that there's some remediation that can be done to do that. We have one staff member that literally sits right next to that wall. When the air conditioner wasn't working, it was very, very musky in there. I mean, you could smell the mold. Since the air conditioner was on, that's been cut down a little bit, but I'm still very concerned that what is behind that wall. The other main issue I think that you're referring to probably is the elevator. I've had several conversations with both the repair person, and in fact, right after you were there, I think you were there, the regional person was there for Otis. I think, and again, not taking up too much time, but a little bit of background, I think the overall problem is that when the county bought that building, it wasn't anything the county did, but that elevator, according to the people at Otis, which it's not an Otis elevator, but according to them, has problems. There was some issues with it. I will say this, I do know at some point the point was made that there was a battery and that battery died because it was not being used. I will tell you that was simply not true. I talked to the elevator repairman. What actually happened was the battery did go dead, but that's because the circuit breaker to the elevator had been flipped off, and for who knows how long. I personally suspect it happened sometime when they were installing the generator, because there's no other breakers that were flipped at that point. So I imagine that had something to do with it. The other issue with the elevator is that apparently the circuit board of that brand of elevator has been having constant problems. So they've tried to replace that circuit breaker, but as the regional manager told me, you're basically ordering parts from a different company, and that circuit board is now obsolete, and now they're trying to update that circuit breaker, or that circuit panel, which is having to be sourced, and even the resourced one is not. I mean, I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but may still have issues. Let's put it that way. And overall, the circuit board basically controls the brakes of the elevator. And the issue is the brakes are not working correctly, so obviously you can't have that running. I don't know what to say other than, I think at some point, and this was what the regional manager basically said, at some point you're going to have to look at is continually trying to fix that more expensive than just replacing it. And I know that, as far as the elevator in our building, there's several, my concerns, if I were the quorum court, would be the ADA issues. We have clients that have to have access to that elevator. And that's not a choice that some of them have. And suggestions I've heard were, well, let's have meetings downstairs. Well, that is a short-term solution, but that doesn't comply with the ADA. And so you may still end up with lawsuits for unequal access at that point. So I don't really see a way, and there was an ADA expert that came out and reviewed, and basically my understanding is really the only way that we can be in compliance is to have that elevator working. And that elevator has been out, I would say personally, from my knowledge, for at least a year. I talked to the deputies over there, and since security's been back in there, they're not aware of it working since then. We did, and I know this has probably been brought up or may have heard, but we did have a client who was in a wheelchair and unfortunately physically climbed the stairs because that was the only way they could get up. That was at a time that the security was not there. That was before they brought back the courtroom, so there was nobody downstairs at that point. The elevator didn't work. We've tried to do what we can. There's a phone down there that is a direct line to our desk, but again, it's still not ADA compliant, and I think, frankly, that it's a disservice to some of the clients to that. I mean, I think that's just something that needs to be addressed. One of the things, and I don't with the funds, but however it is, the elevator needs to be repaired. I just don't think there's a way around doing that would comply with the ADA. But I do know they've been working on it. It's still not working to my knowledge at this point.
Thank you. And I do know that it's being worked on, and looked like it had several people on the roof and elevator workers there. Right. One more question, if I could, Mr. Chair, on the disability part. The large room that's right behind, right as you come in security there to the right, how come that could not be, would that be not qualified to have anybody with disabilities be able to meet there?
I will say this, that according to my understanding, and I'm by no means an expert again, but this is also coming from the ADA reviewer that came out, obviously we're not opposed to having a room downstairs, but that still is not compliant with ADA. So basically what my understanding... Why not? Because there has to be equal access to all parts of the public building. So in other words, let's put it this way, I think the spirit of what I would say is this: if you were in a wheelchair and you were being forced to meet in a different location than everybody else that was our clients, I think that's kind of part of the issue. I think the idea of the ADA, if you go to the heart of it, is that anybody with a disability has equal access that somebody that doesn't have a disability has. So I understand the standpoint of trying to put that patch on it by having a room downstairs or something like that, but I think you're still going to end up with potential lawsuits under ADA or whatever else because that does not comply with the terms of that. So again, it's one of those things where I think that it's certainly something that can be addressed, and we've tried to find workarounds, but the room would be a short-term solution, a short-term patch, not a solution.
Well, okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, but I will say this. I've dealt with quite a few disabilities, and to be able to walk in the door, go 10 feet into another room versus taking the elevator, going down all the hallways that you have upstairs would be far better for me or for the ones that I've taken care of. You just come 10 feet, go right in that room. So what is that room used for? It's empty.
I believe it's security.
Y'all didn't get to show me that. I saw that on the way out.
We don't have access to it at this point. I believe it's security uses that. But again, I'm not saying that some people wouldn't prefer that, but I can't say that some people wouldn't. What I can say is my limited knowledge and what I was told by the ADA evaluator is that would not be in compliance.
I think it also is an issue that the ADA applies to our employees. It applies to our employee who has bad knees and it hurts to climb the stairs. It applies to our employee with lupus, and to others who, because of age or disabilities of their own, cannot climb the stairs easily. And so that doesn't provide a solution for them either.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm not saying that I think that we should not fix the elevator. I think we should get it fixed as soon as possible. But you can only wave a magic wand so much before you get something done. But I'm looking for an alternative for someone that's disabled. If I'm disabled, I'd much rather come in and go right into that room and have it fixed up very nice for them. I mean, I would fix it up so that the ones upstairs would fight to come downstairs. And also, if you hire a new public defender, you could also use that for the new person.
Well, since you bring up employment, let me say one more real-world problem with that.
Well, I'll sign off because I should. I've already taken too much time from the court, but you can go ahead with your explanation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think it's also relevant to say that, we have had some employment that we've had recently. One of the people that applied had a disability. We had to go downstairs and meet with that person in the parking lot because we didn't have anywhere else. So maybe she preferred to client, maybe not. I don't know. I understand that you would prefer that. I'm not sure I can say that for everyone. But what I can say is that I was that person applying for a job and I went to an interview and I had to be met downstairs in the parking lot because there was no other way for me to get upstairs, then I think the chances of me being employed there or wanting to be employed there may be viewed differently. And so I think it's also an issue, like she has said, with employees. It's not just clients, but it's employees also.
I really appreciate these comments. I think we're deviating way away from the Public Defender's 2022 budget. So, I mean, I would like people to keep that in mind. J.P. Simons?
I think my comments are probably more directed at myself to look into, but we have an open insurance claim on the roof. Has anybody looked at the coverage on that building to see if the coverage applies to the elevator? It would be dependent upon the cause of loss, which we've talked about is kind of up. So that might be something that I look into to see, has anybody looked into our insurance policy and if that elevator might have coverage on it? And if so, we need to go ahead.
I, of course, have no knowledge of that. I think that's a really good question for Judge Wood and Chief of Staff Lester. It's also a segue to, we're not building managers on the quorum court. We're appropriators of money. So, I mean, we have to let, at some point, the judge and his staff take care of this. And I'm sure if we have a request for funds to do something, we would very happily field that to this point. I think they're trying to work through what they have, so. J.P. Madison.
Thank you. I just didn't want it to go without saying that the Americans with Disabilities Act requires governmental buildings, public buildings, to have access to all floors. So it's not, it may be a temporary solution, but it is a requirement of the Americans with Disabilities Act that public buildings, as opposed to like a private restaurant or another building where there may be different rules, but a building like their building must have access with an elevator to the second floor. So it's not just, certainly the issue of employees having equal access is very important, but it's not just a matter of us just discontinuing the elevator and finding a solution. That building has to have access. So it's good that everybody's staying on top of it. So I just wanted to make sure that we understood that the ADA has different components. Private buildings, places of public accommodation, government buildings, and then employees. So there's different facets to it. That's all I want to say. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I mean, I feel obligated to echo J.P. Dennis and everyone. Any of the conversations I've had with the judge or anyone is, not that the elevator will never be fixed. But I think also a fair point is if we decide the elevator is completely inoperable and we need to fully replace it, how long are we from that? And I think a temporary space would only make sense to accommodate this. No, it's not perfect. You're right. Might well, there'd be some possibility for legal action or whatever, but we can only do what we can do in that situation. But like I said, I'd like to get back to the budget if that's possible. Any other questions for Ms. Houston or Counselor Chancellor?
Thank you for letting us speak with y'all tonight.
Thank you for coming. I think it's been very informative.
See what we do and visit the office. We can talk to you more about what we do.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right. Time for public comment. Public comment is 12 minutes with 3 minutes per person.
Hi, Sarah Moore of Fayetteville. I've brought this up before, and I just wanted to bring forward again. I think that the governor today declared an emergency and is calling a special session to talk about masks. This area of the state of Arkansas is seeing a spike in COVID cases, and so I really appeal to the court and to the judge's office to please reconsider hybrid meetings. I know there are a lot of immune compromised and lots of children that are under 12 that cannot be vaccinated, my children included, and we want to fully participate in our government process. However, I'd really like to not take COVID home to my daughter who has asthma and can be easily hospitalized if she gets a common cold. The second thing that I wanted to bring up tonight is I really appreciate the very large conversation around the public defender's budget and some of the things happening in their office. I'm very thankful to this court that it did invest and did an assessment of our entire system, and there were a lot of incredible findings in that report. If folks have not had the opportunity to go through it, I understand it's lengthy and we all have time constraints, but it really has some really good nuggets of direction of where we can head. Some of the additional things in it, and I know the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee is focused on, are pretrial services. Oftentimes those can be embedded within our public defender's office, so when we're thinking about the 2022 budget, that be something to possibly consider as well. Additionally, in some areas, there's something called peer navigator. We've heard tonight that, you know, individuals that unfortunately end up with criminal charges pending maybe have things going on in their lives where they disappear. Peer navigators and additional support services within our public defender's office would be a great investment in our community, because these individuals actually locate those folks and get them connected to services and improve the proceeding of them getting through the court process. Because obviously if you can't locate an individual, unfortunately, that case stays pending and doesn't get closed, and that stays on their docket. So I'd like to really encourage that we look at getting them to parity pay, getting the public defenders as many headcount as they need, and also looking at the prosecutor to see if that's something that's needed as well. So thank you.
Public comment. All right, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you.